Well, thank you for meeting with me. Tell me a little bit about your journey in terms of how you landed in college coaching.
Yeah, so my journey is very different from I feel like a lot of other coaches, especially in today's time. When I was done playing, I wanted to get married and I wanted to have a family. And, I say back then, but like it wasn't common to have, you didn't see many coaches with um, a wife or a husband with kids. And so, in my mind, I thought I had to pick. And
Mhm.
so, me and my husband we got married right out of college. We've been together since we were 18. And, we have two kids. And so, but I've always like felt pulled back to softball. And like, I think the really cool thing about my journey is like, yeah, I stepped away from softball. But during that time, I kind of figured out who I was as a person without softball. I didn't really identify with like, um, my success with softball, but like, yeah, it was a big part of my life. So like, now that that's gone, who am I? Right. And so, but that gave me time to do that. And then, so I got into education, coached high school for a little bit, moved out of state with my husband for his job, and then came back to North Carolina. Um, and so when I came back, I was coaching and teaching at a middle school. And Coach Brenneman, who recruited and coached me at Carolina, North Carolina, not South Carolina, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
because she coached both.
Go Eagles.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, she reached out, and so then the NCAA had that fourth position came in. And so I was still kind of, nervous, like, gosh, do I take this leap of faith? I'm very comfortable in my job. I was pretty successful as a teacher. I taught special ed for 8 years.
Oh yeah.
I felt fulfilled. I had two kids, a husband, a house, land, I had, if you think about your check boxes, I felt like I had those. And
Hmm.
so, but something was still missing and I couldn't figure out what it was. Um, and so my husband was the one, Dustin, was like, if you don't take this opportunity, you're going to regret it because he knows me, like knows me.
Hmm.
So, so yeah, so I took the fourth position, and at UNC Greensboro, and then, the hitting position came open and I took it. And so I quit teaching and now coaching full time.
Heck yeah. I love that. I do. Because too, there's a point in there that's like, you know, we are driven in a lot of ways to check boxes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of extrinsic things in the world that people strive for. Not that that's a bad thing, but it circles back to how your insides align with those boxes. Love
Yeah.
that. Okay. So, having stepped out of the game and coached middle school, high school aged girls, now we're in the collegiate realm. You and I were competitors. I would say very strong in the sense of our approach to leadership and the game. And today's world is just a little bit different, in terms of that. If you and I were playing today, we would be an outlier, in our
Yeah.
approach,
I agree.
or for lack of better words, we would not be well liked.
Yeah.
So how have
No,
you
you're right.
how have you adapted over the years to today's, athlete and to, just the culture of the game today?
Yeah. It is different. It is definitely different. I feel like when we played, it was practice was like, you, I'm going to push you. And if you don't rise to this expectation, then you're, either get on the train or get off.
Yeah.
Right. And it is different in today's, time with the athletes. But I think the biggest thing is having them understand that criticism is a good thing,
Mm.
failure is a good thing, because so many people, and even, without sports, so many people look at failure as, oh, I didn't do this, or I didn't measure up to
Right.
this, versus, you know what, I didn't measure up in this area, but this is what I learned. So next time when I'm in that situation, then I'm ready. Like, and I know what I bring to the table.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing is, with today's athletes, is getting them to understand that failure and like prep and realizing that all of that leads together,
Hmm.
and like failure is a good thing. I mean, you think about hitting, gosh, you hit 300 and you're an all-star,
Hmm.
and you failed 7 times.
Right.
And so I think that also comes in, a little bit of parenting, especially now I'm a mom, so I can see, you know, yeah, you don't want your kid to fail, but if you don't let them fail, then they're going to fail at more important things than just softball.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
One thing you said was you knew what you bring to the table. I felt the same way, like I could stand there and say,
yeah,
like, this is what I bring, and it would show. Um, I ask kids that question all the time, when they get to a place where they're unsure of themselves, and it takes them a lot to come up with what it is they bring to the table. What do you think that's about? Like, why do you think these kids don't have maybe that sense of self that we did?
confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I, especially in today's time, I watch a lot of like little clips of really, 90s, early 2000s, like hitters mentality, things like that. And I think that confidence comes with preparation.
Mhm.
And so many kids are practicing 4 days a week. So many kids are, going to lessons, and so many kids are doing all this extra stuff. So that doesn't set you apart anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And like, but the thing is they're going to their lessons and they're going to practice with people. So they don't have the time to be alone and to figure out who I am as a player. You
Yeah.
know, back when we were coming through, yeah, we would have practice, twice for a tournament team.
Yeah.
I was always playing multiple sports. So like it's not like we could practice softball every day. Where
Right.
today they want to practice softball 24/7. And that's great. But when you get to 18, 19, you kind of get burned out by it. So like the thing is we practice maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if we had a huge tournament coming up. But like everything else was left to me. Like the coach knew if I was doing things on my own,
Hmm.
versus, you know, I'm not saying going to lessons is a bad thing. I give lessons. I know that world. You're in it, and that is a great thing, and it can be a tool. It
Right.
can be a tool in your pocket.
Mhm.
But like you also have to have some alone time and reflection to figure out who you are. Like, I was on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, and I was looking, and there's so many athletes like that post videos of them doing things, oh, when no one's watching. And it's like, but you just put it out there for everyone to watch. Like, I don't need to know, like, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I I don't need to know that you hit 5 times a week. You know, I'm going to know that you put in the extra work by your play. And
Yeah.
that prep gives you confidence. And
Right.
that confidence lets you know what you bring to the table. So if you're not doing the prep, then if you're not doing more prep than others, so others being they're going to lessons too. So now that's like that's like baseline.
It
So
is.
what are you doing? Yeah. So what are you doing by yourself when no one's truly watching and not
Right.
posted on social media? You know what I
Right.
mean? So like I feel like we had confidence because you know we knew who we were as players, because we spent time alone with ourselves as players.
Yeah.
And so that just, gave me you don't get confidence from someone else. You bring your own confidence.
Yeah.
No one else can give you confidence. But, you don't get confidence unless you do prep. And you
Right.
know if you're doing the prep.
Right.
Your play knows if you're doing the prep.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the difference. I do think that's the difference.
So in terms of confidence, hold on, I gotta write this note because you said play knows if you did the rep, and I like that line. Um, that might be the title to your little segment.
Oh, nice.
So huh?
Nice.
That's very Allie Blake for sure.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me, Davis. You're still Allie Blake in my phone. So in terms of confidence, okay, so I do a lot of emotional studying, fear, all the things, because you're presented with so much as a one-on-one. You learn a lot about people very fast. They open up to you in a lot of ways that might not happen in a team setting. And so I found myself, studying fears and how much, we are incorrectly motivated in times by
Mm-hmm.
fear. Fear is a good thing in a lot of ways. It can, propel you to heighten, self and all that stuff, but it can also be used in a bad way if we stay in that state. And I found like most of my girls are afraid of judgment, disappointing people they love, coaches, peers, parents, and fear of failure. And typically, they all kind of encompass. Like, I don't have a lot of kids who aren't afraid to fail, and are afraid of disappointing their parents. Like, they typically are all kind of weaved into, one another. Um, but I guess what I'm getting at is like, how have you seen those fears show up? In I guess all variations of your game, because I mean you have a recent experience with high school kids
Yeah.
who's going to be the market here, and then maybe discussing how that's translating even now at the older level.
Yeah. So I was fortunate as a player to not have this fear that a lot of players have today. And to be honest, I think it came from the fact that I knew who I was as a player. I knew what I brought to the team. I knew my confidence because of my prep and all that kind of tied in. So thankfully, I never had to deal with the fear. Now, as a mom and a wife, I've been experienced, you do have those fears, but like on the field, I did not as a player.
Right.
And so, today's kids and high school, middle school, high school, even college, like they're all dealing with this fear, and it's a fear of failure. And a lot of it has to do with not failing and getting back up by yourself.
Yeah.
And because as parents, you don't want your kid to fail. You want your kid to be the best one on the team,
Right.
right? Um,
Yeah.
but you gotta let them get up by themselves
Yeah.
because that's when they're gonna figure out the lesson from the failure.
Hmm.
So what's happening is we're having these kids fail and then fail again and then fail again, but they're not getting themselves up. Someone else is getting themselves up, and
Hmm.
so they're missing the lesson part of it. So it keeps happening over and over versus them learning from what they failed on.
Right.
And so then it continues to happen and it continues to happen. And so um getting back up, like, yeah, you're gonna fail. We really at the college level, especially this year, we've embraced the figure it out mentality. Figure it out. Like, I can sit here and I can say, hey, we're so disconnected from our top half and our bottom half with hitting. And hitting is hard, and people need to understand that. Hitting is hard. It is not something easy. Okay.
Mm-mm.
But I can tell you as a coach, assistant coach another assistant coach can tell you, head coach can tell you, and there gets to a point where you got to figure it out yourself.
Hmm.
Like, what's going on. We can, do drills. We can work on different stuff like this, blah, blah, blah. We can have those talks. We can do all that. But you have to be willing to figure it out yourself.
Right.
So that figure it out mentality of, yeah, I just failed. What is the lesson from it? Learn from it and don't do it again.
Right.
And it's just that simple concept, but we're missing the very important piece of getting back up by yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that's a big component. But I'm a mom, so I also understand from, the other point of view.
Yeah.
And for example, and this might not go in the clip, so it's fine. But Lily had a basketball game 2 weeks ago, and I was there, and they she's 9, so they play in a league, and you wear wristbands and you have to guard your wristband color, so like someone that's really elite is not guarding someone who's not, and it just kind of makes it fair. So you can't really double team. You can help if they're driving in, but well, in this game they were triple teaming Lily. She was getting pissed. I mean, when I'm telling you, she was mad. And there's another player on her team that they were doing the same thing to. And so she was just frustrated. And then there was some, questionable things by the other coach. And, me being on the sideline, I was like, hey, Lils, like, breathe. It's fine. But then she was guarding the wrong person because the other coach switched wristbands. And she was like, no, I'm supposed to be guarding this person. And, and I'm like, I don't care what you think. He's wide open. You have to guard him. That is your new dude. Like, you can't, and obviously it wasn't right that the coach did that, blah, blah, blah. But that's beside the point. So I'm really big on the component of after game talks. We don't really discuss outcomes because so many kids are outcome based, and they're outcome driven. And so that's just kind of our thing. We don't talk about outcome. I'm like, hey, did you hustle? Did you have fun? Did you do everything the coach asked you to do? Were you a team player? Yep, 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 yep. Hey, we're good. Let's go get something to eat. Call it a day. It doesn't matter if you went 0 for 3 at the plate or you missed all your shots. I don't care. And so, but this time I'm sitting on the side, I'm in the bleachers, and I'm taking the time and I'm really thinking, I'm like, okay, something's different. One, she was getting so mad, and then two, she started crying. And there's about 3 minutes in the game, and she takes herself out of the game. And so I go quiet in the stands, and I'm like, okay. So after the game, I tap her on the shoulder. Everyone's trying to figure out why she's crying. I know why she's crying, which pisses me off. So I tap her on the shoulder. I said, hey, let's go. You're riding home with me, not dad. And my husband was going like, oh, is this going to be a good thing? Because he knows how super competitive I am. But he also knows that I really value after game, situations. And so she gets in the car, and the tears start. And I have a choice. Like, I can continue to harp or whatever, or I can go the soft approach or whatever. And I turned around and I said, hey, you can be the worst person on your team. You can miss every single shot. Said, but you will never quit on your team. And that's what you did. I don't care if you're getting triple team. I don't care if, what was happening. At the end of the day, it had nothing to do with how many shots you missed or how many shots you made. It had every bit of you doing was the fact of you just quit on your team.
Yeah.
And I will not allow that.
Right.
So I don't care if you're pissed off. I don't care how mad you get. I care about you quitting on your team, and that is my problem. I'm not upset because you didn't play well today. I'm not upset because you lost. I don't care. Those are outcomes. I am upset because you quit. You had
Yeah.
3 minutes left, and they lost. They lost by like 2 or 3. So like 3 minutes left with Lily in the game could have been a very different outcome, but she couldn't get out of her own way. And anyway, this week she had a game. It was much different outcome, much different player, and the outcome was there because she was a different player as far as headspace. So
So I
I don't know
love,
if that answered your question.
well, no, I love the story actually, because when I get into these conversations sometimes with families, because that's sometimes my role as a private instructor is to have these conversations that might not be had with a team coach. And, a lot of times I talk about like redefining success and failure, which is essentially what you
Yeah.
just did in a nutshell. And I always bring it back to like the family having core values and standards and
Yeah.
defining your success and your failures off of the representation of those core values. And so I love that you just spoke to that in your own way, because I do try to get families to focus on this in that lens. Like the wins don't matter, the batting average doesn't matter, but not giving up, these kind of things as a family too. And if the families all buy into, like every member of the family are bought into like a family system or a family core value, makes the home culture a lot easier when it comes to post-game
Yeah.
chats, right? Or tough moments within
Yeah.
all of that. Um, so that's a really cool point. That I'm kind of glad that organically came out. One question I did have
Nice.
though, because this might be good for parents to hear. You were, yeah, a competitor. I didn't like to lose, but um it was a way different world for you in that regard.
Yeah.
Like I could find myself in
Yep.
a calm space and I thought about it, but like you were, like that
In it. Yeah.
bull. So how do you tame that lion as a parent? I have parents who played sports in college who have coached or who were competitive in something totally different.
Yeah.
How do you tame that desire, and choose, these other life lessons, in moments with your kids?
Yeah, I was a competitor. I felt like that played into my game, and I wanted to make, well, first of all, I was gonna prep. I was gonna do the work, and like I had the mentality of, if you think you're better than me, if you think you should be playing more than me, then come take my position. And I'm 100% positive I told a couple players that my senior year. But I did that, and then I turned around and helped them get better behind the plate,
Right,
which just so happened, I had an injury, so it worked out, right?
right.
But as a parent, being, yeah, I'm still a competitor. That is still in me, 100%. I have a 4-year-old son that is a competitor, and so try not to tame him, but like let him figure it out himself. Um, but as a parent, I have realized, um, this isn't my game. This is her game. And so, and Lily has 100% shown me that, because Lily does not care anything about softball. And everybody's like, oh, well, she will one day, and she'll do this, and she'll, all that. And I'm like, no. And I don't care that she doesn't like it's not like she doesn't like softball. It's she knows mom is very much attached and linked into softball, and she wants to carve her own path.
How
And
crazy though,
you
how
know
crazy is it that she feels that at a young age? And I just had a
oh,
conversation recently with somebody about how
yep,
much a kid feels, and a parent doesn't realize. Like the discussion was in a different
yeah,
arena, but like they feel and sense and know all of these things long before a parent really even puts it together,
gets it, yeah. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you, oh, I didn't struggle with it, that she doesn't care about softball. It's not like I struggled with it, but it was more like I kept saying, oh, she's too young, it doesn't matter anyway. Doesn't matter anyway. She's 7, she's 8. Like it this time doesn't matter. Like I feel confident in my skills that if she did decide to do softball, I could get her caught up.
Mhm.
And maybe that's a little, arrogance in me probably. But hey, I want to
You
give
did the
her this time to
prep.
figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. So I did the prep, right? But then she was begging to play soccer. And I was like, you know what? Like, she's fast. I wasn't fast. So she has different skill sets than I did. I was, punch you in the face, grit, grind it.
Yeah.
I'm going to dive head first, knock you out. Like that was me. That was me. That's not Lily. And so I can't expect her to be successful the same way as I was, because we have different skill sets. But anyway, she was wanting to play soccer, and we did church league soccer, and it was okay. Like it was, it was really good as far as like introducing her to soccer. But this past year was her first year playing soccer, and I'll never forget this. I was sitting. First of all, I don't even know the rules, so I need to figure that out. But yeah, talk about pulling someone out of your comfort zone. But I was sitting there, and Lily, her first year playing soccer, is instructing her teammates where to be, what position, instead of turning to herself and focusing on herself when she hasn't played. But she's very intelligent. She's got a sports IQ, I would say. And so she had been through the practices and she had done that. And some girls were out of position and stuff like that. And it hit me like her light bulb's coming on. Like her light bulb just flickered and had nothing to do with softball.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I prided myself on pouring into my teammates. And yes, I was tough, but I would ride them. Like I was tough because I wanted them to be better because I knew if they were better, then our team would be better.
Yeah.
And when I saw Lily pouring herself into her teammates, first year playing soccer, I was like, oh, like, like, talk about smacking you in the face as a parent. Like, that is the coolest moment. Haleigh, if you ever have kids or nephews or anything, nieces, nephews, anything like that, the day their light bulb comes on for their on, like for them, not for me, not for my husband. He played baseball and he played football. So we didn't do soccer, neither one of us. So we're learning this, and so that was a really cool moment, one as a parent, but also as a coach to see, hey, she's pouring herself into her teammates. Her light bulb's coming on. Like this is where I step back. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. If she comes up to me and says, "Hey mama, I don't think I want to play softball anymore." I'm like, "All right, let's see if we can donate some of this stuff and let's get you somewhere else." But I want her to play multiple sports, so I'm not like really caring that she's focusing on one. So she
Yeah.
does play three sports. But soccer is where her light bulb came on. And as a parent, when you see that happen organically, man, you got to go with it. Like you can't hold it back, And here's another thing: as a parent, when you see that light bulb go on, it doesn't have to be sports. Like it can be, art, which you're like, oh my gosh, how could I ever do? Or whatever. It could be band, and I was like, but if that's where their light bulb goes on, man, you pour into that because that's what they want. And like you just have to realize that. Yeah, I want her to play softball. Yes, I want Nolan to play baseball. Um, but if that's not where their light bulb comes on, then I'm okay with that too.
I
So
love that because the message truly is like, how connected are you from a sense of like, how can I word this? Like that light bulb moment was Lily connecting to Lily. You know what I
yeah,
mean? In that moment.
yeah,
And so
yeah, for
as a
sure.
parent, how aware are you, with that relationship within your kid to be able to see that? Because I do
Yeah,
feel like, a lot of kids do have great moments where they are feeling that, but a parent is still consumed in other things. I had
yeah,
a 12U team come in the last couple Saturdays, and I do mindset activities at the end. And I push them to be vulnerable, very vulnerable, and ask them to share, some of their fears. And they're 12. So you don't know how deep this will go. But there were probably three girls at 12 years old who said, I'm afraid to disappoint my parents and not make them proud. And I wanted to make it very clear because they're young. So I did something a little unorthodox to my normal. And I tried to explain that, like, I don't want you all to think that your parents are truly disappointed in you. Um, they want your success, but they're just trying to love and protect you in the best way that they know how. But if you
yeah,
feel like that, then maybe have a conversation, with them, because
yeah,
I guarantee that's not really what they're thinking, and feeling. And this
yeah,
one poor kid goes, no, that's what they tell me in the car. And like I didn't even know what to say or what to
Yeah, that's tough.
do, and I
Yeah, I
just,
think yeah, and here's another thing is travel ball these days is just so different. I think a lot of parents think that their kids' success and failure within play is a reflection of them.
as
It's
parents.
not. It's not. And like Lily, she plays rec league softball, and we have a pretty good rec league, and I'm not letting her play travel ball, nor would I think she want to play travel ball. So it kind of works out. But I just think she's too young. That's just me. That's just
Yes.
my point of view. But I'm not going to travel around when she's 8. I want her to go to the beach and
Yeah.
I want her, go to the mountains, do different stuff. But like, it's the fact of so many parents find their identity in the success and failures of their kids. And then that puts pressure on their kids to perform. Well, then what we talked a little bit about pressure, that confidence in those pressure situations comes from prep. Well, if the prep is all tied into your parents making you do it versus who you are as an individual and you doing it by yourself, then you're not prepping at all. You're
No,
not prepping yourself.
you
You're
just,
prepping yourself how to handle your parents
mhm.
versus prepping yourself to play the game.
Yeah,
And
that's a great
so,
point.
yeah, and the thing is like Lily, you know, Lily played. She made the All-Star team as an 8-year-old, and she's like one of the oldest ones on the team. But she was an alternate. So let me. That's very. I need to be very clear about that. She didn't make the team straight out. I'm a Division 1 softball coach, and my kid didn't make the team straight out, and that has no reflection of me. And like, it's the fact of like, all these parents, and it's not just, where I'm at, it's everywhere. But
Yeah.
like, all these parents are sitting there and like, so worked up on, oh, well, my kid went 2 for 3 today. Oh, well, my kid went 0 for 3. Okay, well, a 2 for 3 kid could have popped it up and they just didn't catch it and ate and under. And an 0 for 3 kid could hit 3 barrels and get out. That's the point of the game. Like, you could do everything right as a hitter and still fail. And like, so these parents they you get caught up in all that, and it has no reflection of you. And if you, as a parent, if you are putting your identity into your kids' outcome of a game, like, check yourself. Like, this
So,
is, this is your kid. Like, they're kids.
and I think, I understand that. I mean, I don't understand yet. I do want to be a mom whenever it comes, however it
Yeah.
comes. But I do know that, like, based on my friends and the things that I hear and all the things you read, is like you get into it and you kind of start to lose yourself because you're just right consumed with raising a little baby and all the things, and they need to learn all these
Yeah.
things and do all these things. And so I guess, like, what does Allie do, as a parent to kind of stay centered in that and not lose yourself to a fault to them, I guess.
Um, I'm confident in my prep. I'm confident in my prep as a mother. As far as, you know, I'm going to give her every bit of knowledge that I can. But I'm also confident in my prep of I've got to let her fail, and I'm going to come alongside of her and help her navigate this versus you know picking her up. If I pick her up every single time, then Lily doesn't understand how to stand up by herself. And in today's world, like, we need to raise women that can stand up when they get knocked down.
Yeah.
We have to raise women that know how to deal with adversity. You know, like, um, guess what? You're not always going to get that Division 1 offer. You know, um, prep, train yourself in the best way you think possible. Um, but sometimes that isn't for you. What is for you is to have an amazing career at a Division II or Division III level. And that holds just as much value as sitting the bench for a Power 4 school.
Yeah.
And and so it's just, we have to really start putting our kids in situations that we're not picking them up. We're letting them figure out how to stand up by themselves. And you know what? Sometimes to stand up, you're gonna have to crawl. And then you're gonna have to cry and you're gonna have to figure it out. But if I pick her up, that doesn't teach her anything. It's the
Right.
crawling and it's the tears and it's the process that creates that strong person. Because here's another thing I say all the time, and I say this to most of the kids that I work with. I continue that into college because it's still, I mean, it's so present. One day you're going to hang up your cleats. We all do. And are you going to use this time to help you figure out who you're going to be when you hang your cleats up? So in softball, in all sports, you have adversity. Are you going to use this adversity to whine and complain about it? Or are you going to use this time when you're struggling with adversity and you might not get the start, or you're over 7 your first weekend or whatever? Are you going to use that adversity to whine and complain about it? Or are you going to pick yourself back up and figure it out?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot, as far as like parents and identity that needs to be addressed. And yes, we do talk about, sports psych and stuff like that, as far as we target that for athletes. That's big right now. Sports psych is in and talking to someone and figuring out all this stuff. But parents also probably need to realize that as well. Is
How
that
much
they're
of it do
probably,
you, yeah, how much
yeah,
of it do you think too? So like in my adult life, I've wanted to have, more control over my emotions and my choices. I talk a lot about the power of choice. And
yep,
like, you're talking about parents trying to, put down their identity. How much of it do you think is them prepping themselves for how they plan to handle each situation with their kid? For example, we're going into today's games. If it goes X way, this is how I'm going to be. If it goes X way, this is how I'm going to be. If it goes X way, this is how I'm going to be, which kind of gives them a system of choice, right? Versus
yep,
showing up and experiencing the same roller coaster of emotions as their child, you know?
yep. Yeah, I think parents are not preparing at all. And, we talked about Lily's basketball game. I sat there for, the last 5 minutes of her game. She took herself out of the game. And I sat there and thought about my reaction and how, yeah, in the game, I was not happy with her. I was not, saying, "Oh, it's okay, Lily." No, I didn't do that at all, like at all. But I also knew that my reaction in the car was probably going to have a bigger impact on her. So I did have to self-reflect and prep myself of, okay, if I say it like this, is it going to hit how I want it to hit? If I say it like this, is it going to hit how I want it to hit? Because you said I was a bull in a china shop, and so sometimes as a player, I said things that didn't hit the way that I wanted them to hit, and I could do that as a player, and we could chalk it up to immaturity, we could chalk it up to age, whatever. I can't do that with my kid. Like, I get one shot at this,
Yeah.
one shot. This is my opportunity right now to make the most impact on her in this moment. And so having that reflection before it happens matters. That's the prep. That's the prep right there. It's a reflection.
It is
And
a
to,
wonder. It is
ready.
a wonder how our teams dealt with you and I in the same arena.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Okay, I
I know.
have 1 to 2 more questions if you have time. The first one
Sure.
is, um, how did your parents influence you in being the competitor and the like confident young woman that you were that yielded the success at Carolina? How did your parents play a role in that?
Huge role. Huge role. My mom played a very, very big role in it, and my stepdad as well. Um, I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have probably during that time, but they let me struggle. Yeah, they never had to say, "Hey, Alec." Well, first of all, I was raised by a single mom for a good bit until my stepdad came in. And then navigating that, and then but we are blue collar people. We don't have money for extra lessons and this and that. And it's just kind of like you're doing the best you can with what you have. And like now with that being said, like if I needed a bat, if I got a bat when one mine broke, or two, like I grew out of it. Like I didn't have five bats.
Yeah,
I had one. I had one bat. And then, like catcher's gear and stuff like that. And like, I should have appreciated it more, but I mean, that comes with age,
yeah.
you just
You're a
don't.
child.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, my parents expected excellence, and they demanded it. They demanded it. And it wasn't like, um, you know, I expected you to go 4 for 4, 4 home runs. No,
Right.
that's not the excellence they demanded. They demanded, if I was going to be there, I better freaking be there. Like,
A
we're
process,
not
a
going to come
standard.
here. Yeah, yeah, we're not going to come here and accept, average, because they knew I wasn't average. Um, and so they demanded not perfection. They didn't demand perfection at all. They demanded what I was capable of.
Mhm.
They held me to a standard. And if for some reason a game or like a day or even a tournament, if I didn't, have that standard, it wasn't the reflection of them. It was, what are you going to do to get better?
Yeah,
So they put it back in my court.
yeah.
Everything was always in my court, you
I
know?
love that. Yeah. I'm
So yeah.
writing notes. I love the like what you're capable of, like consistently as a standard, because I do feel like there are moments where parents feed into the blame game of like, well, she didn't play last game, so she hadn't seen live
Yeah.
pitching and, blah blah blah
There's
or
an
whatever.
excuse. There's always, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm.
Okay, I
Nope.
guess lastly, what kind of athletes are UNC Greensboro Spartans, and what kind of message do you want to send, to this community in terms of, I don't know, what we could all do better on this end before they get to your level?
Yeah. I think, one thing that we look for is, well, I know when I go to any field, I can pick out whose parents are who.
Yeah.
Okay. You hear the stories of coaches walking away from players because of parents. I've done it. I actually experienced that. And it shocked me the first time I did it, because I was like, I can't deal with 4 years of that. Like, I am not going to do that. And I don't care if this kid hits 3 grand slams. I'm not going to deal with this parent for 4 years. And so, which is tragic, sucks. But it was like the first time that happened to me, and that happened this summer. But I think as far as prep, we need players that are not outcome based. I like to look at players that are grinding it and figuring it out. You know, so what? Let's just say, for example, um, you your barrel's late. Okay, I look to see, is that player's barrel going to be late the next three swings, or are they going to do an opposite and try to figure it out? And they might overcorrect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, are we going to continue to do the same thing, or are we going to step out of the box, get back in, and try to figure it out? And I don't care if their at bat is successful.
Yeah.
I care that they tried something different and they were trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And like
Those are the
kind of
type of
taking
players
a
that I
risk,
want.
taking a risk in the
Yeah,
arena.
take the risk, right? Because so many times a lot of players are outcome based. Outcome based is, did I hit the home run? Did my team win? Versus those outcomes are going to come when you put in the prep. And those prep comes, and like when you're in a game, you have an opportunity of making in-game adjustments, small adjustments. A lot of people think, oh, in-game adjustments. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But where are the kids that are willing to do that and fail?
Yeah.
That's the kid that I want on my team. Because if they're willing to do that, knowing that I'm standing right behind them, they're willing to take that risk. Woo, when they get it together, it's magic,
That is a
right?
good point
So,
that they're willing to be risky when y'all are there. That is a good
yeah,
point.
a lot of kids play conservative or whatever. And so, as far as catchers, though, when you're going out, you are harder on the position that you play. And so, so I tend to struggle with that. And so, but then when I find one that I really like, I tend to get really excited because I'm like, man, I know for this catcher to get to this level, the work she had to do. I don't need to see it on Twitter. I don't have to see that. But
Yeah.
I know to get to this level, like you catch 5 games and you're still popping in the 1.7s, 1.8s. Like, man, those legs you've put in the prep, you've been in the weight room. You just didn't get that on the fifth game.
Right.
Like you might have got that on the first game because you're fresh. But on that fifth game, you're still popping that low. That means you've been in the weight room. That means you've been working on leg drives. Where's that transfer? That means you've been catching bullpens. So like
Yeah.
I see the work. So that's kind of, what I'm looking for. I always love a hitter. I love a hitter. So
Cool.
yeah.
What do you think instructors in travel ball world can do better? Final question.
Um,
Message to the youth community.
Coaches,
Yeah.
yeah, coaches in travel ball can stop coaching their kids to look to them for every single thing. They're this is not their game. This is the kids' game. So yes, it's great. Running bases. Yes, you've got to get instruction, but you shouldn't have to tell a kid to go on a ball in the dirt. Like they should read it. That should be the prep, right? That's a prep. They practice it enough, so in a game, we're good. We know ball in the dirt. Man, I have that confidence. I'm going. I'm going. Okay, and so I feel like a lot of coaches like to have you
Control.
know control control and like the name on everything. You think about their team name, right?
Yeah.
It's the name of everything. And it's the fact of, yeah, they want control, and that's great. As a coach, you have to have control. So I'm not saying that. I'm not disregarding that. But like it's not your game.
Yeah.
It's their game.
Right.
And let them play it. Like let them play it. So yeah, you can guide them, you can give them instruction, and you can do all this, but when the lights turn on, you're out of it. Like it's them. And if you prepped your team good enough, then you don't have to be in it. So,
Yeah.
I think it all ties back into prep, if you're doing
Should
the
have
work,
known. Should have known. That's funny.
yeah. I mean, but that was how I was as a player. So
Yeah.
I valued
Totally.
prep. So it is what it is.
Totally. Yeah, you were very, very solidified in that process. I was more of a I feel good,
Yeah.
I'm good kind of a girl.
Yeah.
But love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
I'll never forget. You don't have to put this in the thing, but I'll never forget when I was like, "Hey, Dickey, let's go hit." And you're like, "Nah, man. The more I hit, the worse it gets." And I'm like, I am over here like, turning the lights on at 9 o'clock at night, hitting, and it is what it is. And then you come up and you're like 3 for 4 with like 2 home runs, and you're like, see, like the more I do, the worse it gets. So just let me. And I'm like, okay. Touche. Like it is what it is.
That is definitely how I was. Don't let me fool you though. There were, some regrets some years down the road for sure, but
Yeah.
I've made peace. I've made peace. You only know what you know. At
Heck
least
yeah.
I was confident,
That's exactly right.
So
Yeah.
good deal.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
So
so, so much. I love and miss you, and I appreciate your time.